In this video, we're going to talk through good mechanics of how to bend over and pick something up off of the floor or reach for your toes or anything going down that could be vulnerable for your back, your hips, your pelvic floor, or anything else in that region. So we want to make sure we're doing this with good mechanics so we can make sure we're not straining any particular part of our body. We're doing it with proper core engagement to make sure we're not creating any vulnerabilities through our abdomen, our pelvic floor, or our lower back. And this should help give you better force and be stronger through these motions as well. So there's two different styles. We have the squat variation, and then we have more of a lunge variation. So I'll show you both of those. And you can choose which one you feel like is most appropriate for you. So starting off with the squat variation, I have my little box here on the floor. If I'm going to pick up that box, a lot of people, what they'll originally do is just lean forward and grab the box and come back up. So they're just doing this, which is not always bad if you have good flexibility and good motor control and strength, but it's not the ideal, especially if anything is more than a few pounds, because anything heavier with that type of motion can be definitely a vulnerable position. So what we want to do is first get up to the item that we're going to be picking up. So I'm getting that box in between my toes, so that way it's really close to my body and my muscles can perform this task a lot easier. Then from here, I'm going to get my feet wide, so maybe a little bit wider than hip width apart for most people is comfortable, but you can play with the exact width to see what works for you. Toes can be slightly out or it can be forward. That's up to you, and see which one is more comfortable for you. I like a little bit of out toeing, that just works for my body. And now from here, I got everything lined up, my feet are in place. I'm gonna get tall posture. Envision somebody pulling a string through the top of your head and getting you taller. That'll help lengthen out and neutral your spine. Just keep everything nice and engaged here. And then engage your abdominal muscles. You're gonna pull that belly button in towards the spine and slightly up towards your head. So engage that core here and keep it engaged. Now we're keeping tall posture, we're keeping that core engaged, and now we're going to hinge at the hips, bend at the knees, and start squatting down, picking up the box, and then coming straight up. Okay, and then if we're gonna put something on the ground, we just reverse it. Hinge at the hips, bend at the knees, bring that box down, and there we are. This is ideal to do it with both hands, but if you just did one hand, that's okay too. Just be careful that when you're doing it with one hand that you're not getting a lot of twisting with it. You still got to keep that tall posture and neutral spine as you're doing that with one hand. So two hands usually helps counterbalance that. From a side view, nice tall posture, box between my feet, core engaged, hinge at the hips, keeping your back flat, knees are starting to bend. Coming down, picking up that box, and coming straight back up. And same thing, reversing down. That is a good mechanics to do this without hurting your back or creating any strain or abnormal pressure through our body. The lunge variation here is just what it sounds. You're going to do a lunging type of motion. So you can choose your stronger leg to go in front. You want to get the item just inside of that foot, of whichever one is forward, and then you're just going to drop your back knee towards the floor, bending the front knee at the same time, to then go down, pick up the item, and come back up. And you can see I have my hand, you can use your hand on your thigh to help give you some support if you need some help getting in and out of that position. And you can do the same thing the other way around if you need to. So the two variations, the lunge variation and the squat variation. So all of them have the same mechanics from the waist up of getting that tall posture and core engaged, still working on that hip hinge and bending at the knees, but just having either a stagger stance or a equal stance.